So today in my garden I will mostly be planting cauliflowers. I thought I'd be really smart this year and get off to a really early start, but most of my early sowings just didn't do anything at all. I think it was either down to, well, I don't know, there's a myriad of different things really, from poor seed quality. They were cheap seeds that I bought last year, low light levels, crap compost, I don't know, but my early sowings did nothing. So here I am right now in the middle of June planting my cauliflowers. Here they are, my little cauliflowers. I think they're a little bit behind. All my efforts to get ahead and I've just ended up behind, but hey ho, that's how it goes sometimes. I'm going to plant them in my polytunnel because we're so late. I'm hoping that they'll get a slightly longer season. And also, we've recently limed the little bit of retaining wall in the polytunnel, and I know brassicas like a little bit of lime, so that's where I'm going to plant them. So today in my garden I will mostly be planting cauliflowers. I thought I'd be really smart this year and get off to a really early start, but most of my early sowings just didn't do anything at all. I think it was either down to, well, I don't know, there's a myriad of different things really, from poor seed quality. They were cheap seeds that I bought last year, low light levels, crap compost, I don't know, but my early sowings did nothing. So here I am right now in the middle of June planting my cauliflowers. Here they are, my little cauliflowers. I think they're a little bit behind. All my efforts to get ahead and I've just ended up behind, but hey ho, that's how it goes sometimes. I'm going to plant them in my polytunnel because we're so late. I'm hoping that they'll get a slightly longer season. And also, we've recently limed the little bit of retaining wall in the polytunnel, and I know brassicas like a little bit of lime, so that's where I'm going to plant them. So I don't know if you can see this, but we do suffer with pretty poor quality soil in the polytunnel at the moment because it's mostly subsoil. So what we've got here is pretty much clay. So I'm going to dig in some municipal compost just to help improve it a little bit. What am I doing? I'm doing no dig. I don't need to dig in the compost at all. I just need to put it on the top and plant straight into it. Fortunately, because my plants are really small, I don't need a lot of depth of compost, which is great because there isn't a lot of depth of compost here. So let's get planting. Here they are again. Looks like we've got a little hitchhiker. Another thing I sowed really early that didn't germinate well at all was my peppers and tomatoes. That's obviously in my recycled compost, which I've used for a late sowing of cauliflowers, and it's decided to germinate. Ironically now I've got a bit of an excess of peppers and chilies, but that's for another day. There they are, all my lovely little cauliflowers. Fingers crossed they'll come to something. Don't forget the slug pellets. None of the chilies that I sowed from packets germinated. Well, some germinated, but they didn't really come to anything. They just sort of fizzled out. So I had a lot of damping off, which may have been down to the weather conditions, or I don't know. I mean, they were in the house, so who knows. But what was interesting was that the chilies, the seeds from last year's dried chilies, all germinated. And here they are, all 68 of them. I've also ended up with an abundance of tomato plants, and I don't even know how that happened. They're just popping up everywhere in the polytunnel. Here's one. One more. They just decided to sprout themselves. So I'm quite happy with that, and I might actually intentionally let things seed themselves in a kind of permaculture way. The less work I have to do, the better. So I haven't actually done anything in my garden today. I've had a really lazy day in the house. The house that we built from scratch out of straw bales. That was quite a journey. Oh, there's my dog. So one of the jobs I was planning on doing today was cutting the grass. but it's not actually that long, and it's been so hot and dry that actually keeping the grass long keeps it greener, and it's kind of better for the grass. So I might cut it tomorrow. Forecast is for cooler, wetter weather, so it'll be a good time to cut it, because I think what's happened this year is a lot of people have done the no mow May and then cut their grass at the end of May, and it's been really, really dry. And because it was so long when they cut it, it's yellow at the bottom, and we haven't had any rain to green it up. So I'm just keeping my lawns long at the moment. So we didn't actually do no mow May in our garden, because actually we've only got some small areas of grass that we do mow. The rest of the garden, as you can see, is still pretty wild, and that's how we like it. So we've got lots of areas of long grass which basically never get mowed. And one of the great things about having large areas that never get mowed is the wildflowers. You can see behind me, that's Valeriana officinalis, which is wonderful. The other great thing about not cutting huge areas of grass is look at the size of this one. It's as tall as me, taller than me. It's beautiful. And what we have here is kind of like my version of the RHS Award for Garden Merit. Pop it in the garden, forget about it, and see if it survives. If it does, brilliant. It's probably going to get planted at some point. Well, most of my little cauliflower there is gone. I know it's caterpillars because there's caterpillar poo right there. Caterpillar poo, look at it all. But I've got to admit, I was staring at this thing for ages before I noticed the actual caterpillars. Look, they've eaten all of it. I'm going to go and feed these to the birds. So I haven't posted for the last few days, but we have been busy in the garden. Watering the polytunnel. Weeding. Mowing. And painting. Sometimes as a gardener, I forget to just enjoy the garden. So today, that's what I'm going to do. It's also easy to forget how much we've achieved already. This has gone from a sloping meadow to having veg beds, 3 lawns, an orchard, pathways. And right down there, although you can't see it from here, is a pond. So right behind me is my favourite tree in the garden that we've planted so far. It is a weeping Lawson cypress, Camosoparis lawsoniana imbricata pendula. And I don't just love it for the name, I love it for these wonderful weeping scales, these strands of single scales. It's just wonderful, and it's grown so much since we planted it about 4 years ago. It was only about a foot high. Now it's taller than me. So I'm experimenting with these self-set tomatoes. I'm just letting them grow. I'm not going to stake them up. I'm not going to pinch out the side shoots. I'm just going to let them grow and see what happens. I heard somebody say on some panel show podcast I was listening to that the world record for tomatoes on one plant is about 1,000 or something ridiculous. And that was by a guy who didn't do anything to his tomatoes. He just let them grow. So we'll see what happens. Ah, can you see all these? Strawberries? I planted way too many. They're taking over the polytunnel. You see they're sending out runners, all these little runners, all across the pathway. So our wonderful windy pathways have lost their definition. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to let them root in the pathway. And then once they've got a decent amount of root on them, I'm going to chop them all back, I'm going to dig them up, and I'm going to go and plant them in the food forest, and they make fantastic ground cover. So I don't actually water every day in the polytunnel, even in this really hot weather. Reason being, everything in here is planted in the ground, and I want the roots to go down and find the water. So rather than giving it a little bit of water every day, I give it a really good soak every 2 or 3 days, even in this really hot weather. Because if you will give it a little bit of water every day, then you get all the roots up at the surface, which actually makes them more prone to drought. So if you give them a little bit of water every day and then you forget, then all those roots are right at the surface and they haven't gone down to where they can find stored water. So that's why I don't water every day. #lazy gardener.